Is it time to start preparing for Baylor football coach Lincoln Riley?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network in the world, and your first listen today and every day. I am your host, Cam Stuart. Today, we are talking, of course, about the Lincoln Riley rumors. Could he actually be the next head coach of the Baylor Bears? It might not be as crazy as any of us initially thought. What about the current head coach? What is Dave Aranda saying about their next opponent and why Arizona is a unique test for this Baylor team? But is there an aspect of this game that can't really be helped that could be an advantage for Baylor? All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Let's do it. Let's hop right into it. Lincoln Riley, the next head coach of the Baylor Bears? Question mark. It seems like this kind of internet trolling rumor, but there might be some legitimacy to this. This comes from inside Texas, from a guy named Eric Nolan. He's the one who puts it up. I'm going to put it up on the screen, but it's going to be very tough to read, so I'll just read it from the screen grab that I have. And it says this: Lincoln Riley and Baylor could happen. A buddy theorized LSU, but our notes are the same on him. Wants to be a big fish in a small pond. LSU thought they were getting him last time. How crazy a situation could this be if Lincoln Riley returns to the Big 12, where he had all kinds of success, and ends up resurrecting the Baylor football program? I'll tell you this much. I know this is a pro Big 12 podcast. We love the Big 12, America's conference. I think it's better than a lot of people think it is, but we're also not in the business of having alpha dogs the way the Big 10 and the SEC have. You know, any job that you take in the SEC that's not Alabama, Georgia, or LSU, you've got questions as to whether you can win the conference. Anyone in the Big 10 that's not Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Oregon, Indiana, they have questions to whether they can win this conference. Anybody coming in from anywhere in the Big 12, you can win this conference. Ask Kenny Dillingham. You know, ask Joey McGuire in a couple of weeks. Or ask, Willie Fritz with how close Houston is in year 2. You know, it's not crazy. If Lincoln Riley came here, he would be the big fish in a small pond. And he has a chance to run this conference for a second time in his career. I've heard some negative pushback on this. You know, a lot of Baylor fans, of course, because they don't like him because he used to be at OU. And then some other Baylor fans bring up the point that he kind of left OU in the dust a couple years ago, and that's why they don't like him. Okay, it's a little bit more reasonable because Lord knows we've seen that at Baylor before. Looking at you, Matt Rule. Looking at you leaving us at the altar after a great season in 2019. But flat out, what Lincoln Riley does is exactly what we want in this program right now. Except for the fact that I think he's a little corny. I don't think he's like Art Briles was raw and really emotional, and everyone really liked him when he was the head coach. But in terms of Lincoln Riley, the boxes that he checks, okay, offensive mastermind. Like legit at a couple of different places, not just, hey, Dave Aranda, defensive guru. Like this is legit, right? He has coached, 3 or 4 Heisman Trophy winners? 4, I think. 3. Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, all under his tutelage. And he also coached Jalen Hurts, who's the Super Bowl champion quarterback in the NFL. Like this dude has been around and developed some of the best quarterbacks in college the last 10 years. And guys who were dominating in the pros. So he has that for you. He's a legit offensive guy. He's young and exciting. I don't think he's going to be here for 20 years if he ever did come here. But the other thing is this. He wins a lot of football games. Wins a lot of football games in the Big 12. Okay? Because regardless of how you feel about him, he's got 4 Big 12 championship rings in 5 seasons coaching in the Big 12. Once he finally lost one, he was like, damn, I'm out of here. And the road has not been as rocky as I think some people think at USC. He's had one bad year. 34-16 is not, I don't think, what USC expected when they poached him from OU. I think they were thinking national championship by this point. And so that's why I kind of was caught off guard by this rumor of like, I don't know, why would he want to leave USC? It doesn't sound like the seat's hot. Again, it sounds like him trying to get an easier path. And yeah, the Big 12 is easier at the top than the Big 10 is. It's a fun conference. It's competitive as holy hell. But yeah, it is easier to win than the Big 10 is. And so you might see him as a guy running away from the challenge. Okay. But I see a guy who, even if he is running away from a challenge, clearly has overcome this challenge in the Big 12 and is looking to do it again. I'm here for that. And no, he probably wouldn't be here 15 years. I don't think he's going to become a legacy Baylor coach if this long shot of a rumor actually comes true. But damned if he's not right what Baylor needs right now. Like 1,000%. And the fact that he wouldn't even have interest in something like that is fantastic for Baylor. You could think, well, if he wants to win in the Big 12, why doesn't he go to Oklahoma State? I think Lincoln knows his limits. I think he knows his limits. The former OU coach coaching at Oklahoma State, I think he knows his limits there. He is a Texas guy. He's a Tech guy, obviously, growing up out in Muleshoe and going to Tech. But I think Baylor could be a perfect spot for him. The same way I thought it was perfect for James Franklin, who just ended up at Virginia Tech. Another hell of a spot for him to be in a good way. Like those guys are getting criticized at 2 top 5, top 10 programs in college football because they're not getting over the top. They're not winning game 11. They're not winning national championships. In Lincoln's case, he hasn't won the Big 10 championship. But that's good enough to coach here. It's good enough to coach at Oklahoma State. Certainly good enough to coach at Virginia Tech. We'll take that in a second. So yeah, it does seem crazy, right? Like I can't tell you that I'm going to sleep tonight thinking that this is really going to happen. But this is somewhat of a legit report here that he's interested. And we know that, the timeline, whatever it's going to be for Baylor, if it's a week behind everybody else, I don't know how many guys are going to be poking and prodding around Lincoln Riley. I don't, except maybe LSU, who lost out on him last time. But wouldn't it be poetic? Like the one guy, the nut that he couldn't really crack in the Big 12 was Dave Aranda. He beat Dave in 2020, but got his lunch handed to him in 2021, which was probably his worst loss in his time at OU. Like they really had him in a blender and had Caleb Williams in a blender in that 2021 OU game. God, remember how good things were? So wouldn't it be nice from Lincoln Riley's sake to kind of shove it back, take Dave Aranda's job, say, hey, remember that time we had to clear the field twice so that you could kick a field goal to go up by 13 instead of 10 with no time on the clock? Remember, he didn't like that. He didn't like that one bit. And I kind of don't blame him for that, if we're being honest. I don't like OU, but I kind of don't blame him for that. This would be the ultimate get back. And to help his career, start putting some more conference championship rings on his finger. Start getting to the college football playoff. And by the way, it's been a good year for USC. Not many of us watch it because it's out on the West Coast and, they're playing a Big Ten schedule. There's not a lot of rivalries in there, but they've lost to 2 teams. They're both ranked teams on the road. They lost to Illinois and they lost to Notre Dame. So that's a pretty legit schedule they've got going this year and a pretty good team they've got. If Lincoln Riley is, I don't want to say silly enough, but ambitious enough, I guess, to leave that situation at USC and wants a soft landing spot at Baylor, I'm taking him every time. I don't care that he used to coach at Oklahoma. I don't care that he left Oklahoma sort of reeling at the end of the 2021 season. And wouldn't this be interesting? Because this is going to be a crazy cycle, coaching carousel for how many big jobs are open. The last time we said that was in 2021 when Lincoln left Oklahoma. So it's running through the back channels. But if that is true, what an unbelievable development that would be. Baylor nabbing Lincoln Riley from USC. I'd still put it as a major long shot, but it's a probability that is higher than zero. Higher than zero. Would you take Lincoln Riley at Baylor? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, of course, dropping every morning on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. Baylor does have a coach right now. It's not Lincoln Riley. Dave Aranda, Lincoln Riley's daddy in some respects, is taking the field against Arizona this Saturday in what looks like a very dangerous matchup for the Bears. Let's hear what Dave had to say about the Wildcats coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is here. Did you guys notice that? NBA is actually back, like they're playing in the National Basketball Association. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. They're the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. I did a couple live bets on my Boston Celtics on Tuesday night, and won some money from it. I like winning money. FanDuel is good at winning money. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is the one making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Let me say that again. FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Free money, man. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on Locked On Baylor, the Bears travel up to Arizona, travel west to Arizona. I don't know if it's up or not, but definitely left west to Tucson to take on the Arizona Wildcats, who are suddenly one of the hottest teams in the conference. Like, I don't like this matchup at all. There's very few matchups I'd like for Baylor at this point, but I hate seeing Arizona on the other side of this matchup. I mean, they just went into Cincinnati and beat a top 25 Bearcats team that really needed a bounce back after that Utah loss. And Arizona went step for step with them the whole game and won a one-score game on the road in a top 25 environment. Like, that is a really tough thing to do. And they've snuck up on a lot of teams this year. I'm hoping that if you've listened to the podcast this week, that you would not be snuck up upon. There we go, by Arizona, because I'm telling you, I've told you for a couple of weeks now, this is a good team. It's a better team than people have given it credit for. They're not going to be in the rankings because they've lost 3 games. But 2 of them were to very good Big 12 teams on the road, 2 top 15 teams on the road back when Iowa State was a top 15 team. And so they have hung with some of the big boys in this conference. They're just now kind of finding their stride in the middle of the season. Dave Aranda, what are you worried about with this Arizona team?
They've gotten a lot of takeaways, which for us has been an issue this year. And so I think that's a concern. And I think offensively, they've been able to run the ball and really hit on some runs, some big runs. And then quarterback does a great job of throwing the ball down the field. They've got guys that go up and get it. It's more of a vertical passing game. This is probably the first time, maybe since Arizona State, that a team's going to drop back pass just on first or second down. We just haven't seen it this year. Outside of probably Arizona State, most teams' quarterbacks are going to run, or they're going to be some type of RPO or play action or some type of thing. They're going to just sit back there and throw it. And so that's going to be a challenge for us because we just haven't really seen it most of the year. I think their O-line's massive, big dudes, and play hard. I think if you put it all together, though, they believe. There's confidence with them. They had a big win this past Saturday, and so you're going to have to crack the belief to get to the win.
That's so Dave Aranda, man. All those good football things, and then, yeah, they believe. Some would even say Arizona has care factor high in Tucson. Yeah, this is a sneaky good team. He said they're good at forcing turnovers. Yeah, they're great at it. They're tied for first in the conference for interceptions this year. They've got 14 of them, 14 picks in 10 games. And Baylor is one of the most turnover-prone teams in college football, not just in the Big 12. Like they just throw that rock around, man. And they turn the ball over a lot. 14 picks. By the way, for reference for what Baylor's at, Baylor has 7 through 10 games. And Arizona has 14. Double it. It's just a crazy ball hawking kind of defense. The number 1 pass defense in the Big 12, by the way. So we look at this Baylor team. We've said it basically all season long. They're good in one facet of the game, and that is offense, and specifically passing offense. They've not established the run, and 2 of the last 3 games, Sawyer has had not good games. Not a good game against Cincinnati. Not a good game against Utah, even though he threw for 430 or whatever it was. Not sharp in that game. In either of those games, completed about 50% of his passes in both. And obviously threw a couple of picks against Utah as well. Threw for 430. So this is the biggest test passing defense-wise since Auburn. Like, Utah's a heck of a defense all the way around. They faced last week, and it didn't work. But specifically passing defense, it's the best one in the metrics they've faced since Auburn all the way back in week 1. And Sawyer actually had a decent game in that game, but obviously we know what happened. They're okay running the ball. Dave talked about it in there. It's a good running team. Good's a stretch. They're very middle of the pack. They're actually 11th, bottom half of rushing offense in the Big 12. They've got this kid, Ismail Mahdi, who's their leading rusher. He's only at 640 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that's almost 7 yards a carry. So it's efficient, but it's not like they're coming in with the run game that even UCF had, which he did really well against, but certainly not the kind of run game that Utah came in with, and their dynamic running quarterbacks. Speaking of efficiency, how about number 1 defensive efficiency in the Big 12? There are some nasty defenses in this conference. Tech is one. Utah is one. BYU is one. Houston used to be one. Arizona might be the nastiest of the nasty in this Big 12. In fact, the only other team that's top 5 in offensive and defensive efficiency is Texas Tech. You might have heard of them. They're running away with this conference. Statistically, Arizona's not that far off. And I know how we'd be feeling if we were facing Texas Tech this weekend. It would be frightening. And that's kind of where you're at with this Arizona team. There's a lot of things that Baylor does not match up well in. And we haven't even talked about their quarterback. Steady been one of the best quarterbacks in the conference since they joined in. Noah Fafita, still there. Yeah, Noah Fafita, that guy. Did he have the explosiveness the last 2 years of a Sawyer Robertson or Shedeur Sanders or even a Sam Levitt? No, but steady. He has been a prospect for the last couple of seasons. And I look at his numbers this year and the way that Arizona has kind of caught fire the last couple of weeks. And there's a name that continues to come to mind when I look through his numbers. As a guy who's completing 65% of his passes. He has thrown for 2,400 yards through 10 games and has thrown 24 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. And his team is suddenly hot in the middle of the season. That, to me, sounds like 2024 Sawyer Robertson. It's almost exactly. I think his final tally was 28 touchdowns, 8 picks, and 3,000 yards. I mean, with 2 but with 2 Noah Fafita style games, he's going to reach 3,000 yards. And he would have to throw as many touchdowns as he has picks in the next 2 games to get to 28-8, because chances are he's going to end up with an even better ratio than Sawyer Robertson had last year. So You saw how teams did against Sawyer in the back half of last season and how that was Baylor's biggest advantage over everyone else. And yet with Arizona, with a guy who's playing very similarly, it might be like their third or fourth best advantage over Baylor. That Bears team was so hot at the end of last year with Sawyer cooking, and they ran the ball better than this Arizona team does. But they didn't have a defense that's anywhere close to what this Wildcats team is putting out. Stop me if you've heard this one before. I don't love this matchup. I don't love this matchup at all. That said, I think there is one advantage that Baylor has that was completely out of their control, but there are some things in this game that I think Baylor can use to their advantage and possibly, just maybe, get an upset over the Arizona Wildcats. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and when we come back, we'll uncover those secrets as to how Baylor can pull the upset. It's next on Locked On Baylor. Just 2 days away from Baylor, Arizona, Saturday morning local time, where Baylor is 6.5-point dogs after being as high as, I think, 10 on FanDuel, official partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. I think they got all the way up to plus 10 last week against Utah. And I was sitting there telling people 10's too big a number. It's too big a number in this conference, especially with how Baylor can pass. There's no way. The people that didn't listen to me won quite a good amount of money, I would say. 27 is greater than 10. So 6.5 feels big for a Big 12 game, but that's how they're thinking about Baylor right now. Now, notice I said it's a morning kickoff. Arizona does their daylight savings time weird. So in the winter, they're actually only 1 hour behind us in Central Time. And so that makes it an 11 a.m. kick, which Arizona is not used to 11 a.m. local kicks. It's a weird time. It's not a window that we're used to. We're not used to noon kicks in the Central Time Zone. They're certainly not used to 1 p.m. college football kickoffs in the Eastern Time Zone. So this is one that Arizona hasn't played in all season long. And so if you're talking about those external factors, not the matchups on the field, maybe that does help Baylor a little bit when you look at the external things. First off, no one's believing in them. I don't know if I'd pick them at this point in the week. Actually, I do know. I would not pick them. But if you're looking at those external factors like hey, no one believes in us, or Arizona's coming in red hot, they think they're going to roll all over this Baylor team. They're looking ahead to their big rivalry matchup the next week against Arizona State. Classic trap game, 11 a.m. Home crowd's probably not going to be a raucous environment. Maybe that helps Baylor. The other thing that really helps Baylor, typically in the past, is simply playing on the road. Have they won in those really big time Big 12 environments like BYU at night or at Utah, or a Colorado night game when that place was punched out every week? No. But typically, they do well on the road. It's been a weird part of the back half of Dave Aranda's tenure at Baylor, where they were a good road football team. And he was almost saying at times last year, we got to make our home games feel like road games. And he successfully kind of did that by driving all the fans away. But let's back it up. That could help Baylor in a non-raucous environment, kind of sleepy road game, underdogs. I want to say playing with house money, but it is a lot of pressure to get to a bowl game at this point with how you started, the expectations you had coming into the season. But I think all of those things could help Baylor. So if you're one of those people that buys into the kind of the external factors, and you're not saying Arizona has, the top passing defense in the conference, and Noah Fafita is legit, and, they're the only team other than Tech to be top 5 in the Big 12 in offensive and defensive efficiency. If you want to just throw that out the window and you like these external things, it kind of might favor Baylor in a weird way. But right now, plus 6.5. Are you taking that? Are you thinking Baylor can cover that on FanDuel? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We come at you every weekday, of course, dropping in the morning on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts as well. Tell me what you think. Do you watch these? Do you listen to these? It helps me either way. If you really want to help, you can hit that like button, that subscribe button, get notified every time we're dropping a video on YouTube, because, we could be at a time of year where there could be some emergency podcasts. And most of those are YouTube exclusives. We already had one last week with Mac Rhodes, and who knows? If there's a change of leadership, we could well have some breaking news podcasts. So you'll want to hit that notification button to get notified every time we're dropping it on YouTube. And then most of them, of course, wherever you get your podcasts as well. What do you think about Lincoln Riley? Is that your out of left field name that you're taking at this point with James Franklin off the board? Let me know in the comment section below. Again, like, subscribe, help us out on the path towards 5,000 subscribers. I really, really, really appreciate you guys making it your first listen today and every day. It has been not a fun week in terms of being Baylor fans, but it's been such a great week on the channel with how many of you guys are getting involved and spilling your guts, so to speak, spilling out your feelings about this Baylor team and the state of the program. I love it. I'll take it. Even if you disagree with me, drop it in there. I love the discussion. I love some of the playful banter that goes in there as well. So we will see you tomorrow on another edition of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.